ain't taking those from nobody.
Your superstars have off games.
Follow us on social media at Celtics Talk Weekly.
Welcome into Celtics Postgame Live. I'm your host, Justin. Alongside with me, my co-host, a.k.a. Seamus Starlingo. Welcome in, everybody. I'm sure a lot of you guys, your focus is on those that March Madness, as we see Seamus has that UNC hat on, as they just defeated St. Peter's. I believe it was 69-49. They advanced to the Final Four. They'll play Coach K and Duke. That's the first time ever that rivalry will meet in the Final Four. But for now, we'll get to college basketball maybe a little later on in the show. But the Boston Celtics just put together their sixth straight victory in dominating fashion yet again, 134-112, Seamus. And coming into this one, in the month of March at least, the Timberwolves have been one of the best teams in the league, better teams in the Western Conference right now. They're fighting for that play to get out of the play-in spot. What did we see to Seamus? Because this was again unbelievable. 3 months ago, we would never have thought we'd see the Celtics play like this.
Well, you just look back at the last performance against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and we lost that game to Greg Monroe, Nathan Knight, Jalen Noel, and you walked into this game going, we got to avenge that game, right? We're on a roll right now. The Timberwolves are on a roll. This is kind of a, show me yourself during this type of game where both teams are hot right now. And tonight, the Celtics, it's just getting scarier game after game, because tonight I thought this was going to be a legitimate game. I thought we were going to come in and have some trouble with the Timberwolves, right? They're a team that scores a lot of points. They get after it defensively as well. And the Celtics, we all know how they've been good, how good they've been recently. And you just expect that this particular opponent would be able to challenge the Celtics on their home floor, especially considering what we saw in December when a lot of their guys were out and they were still able to beat us up in Minnesota. Yet tonight, the Celtics, it was never a game. It was simply never a game. It was 34-30 after the first quarter. You thought, oh yeah, this could be a high scoring game. And then in that second quarter, the Celtics just took off. And for the rest of the game, the Timberwolves just had no chance whatsoever. Did the Sixers lose?
They just lost. I didn't want to interrupt you. I wanted to let you finish as we bring in.
We are the number one.
Our co-host Ian Angelo.
This is for you.
The Phoenix Suns.
Austin. This is for you.
The Phoenix Suns just defeated the Philadelphia 76ers 114-104. And Miami Heat and the Milwaukee Bucks last night both got stomped, absolutely stomped. And the Boston Celtics win, putting them at the number one seed, where just 3 months ago, the Boston Celtics had 3 games under 500. And we were here talking about, wait a second, are we even going to make the play-in tournament? Forget about the playoffs. Are we even going to make the play-in tournament? Now we're waiting to see who comes into the play-in, who comes out of the play-in tournament to face the Boston Celtics. Now, a lot can change here. Obviously, we could be 1 this week and we could be 5th next week. I doubt that'll happen, but that's how tight the standings are. But for tonight, let's celebrate this 1 seed. The Celtics are back in action tomorrow night against the Toronto Raptors in Toronto. So let's just soak this in, fellas. I do want to get to our player spotlight. Usually we get into it a lot towards the middle of the episode, but tonight's player spotlight is Derek White. 15 points, 6 assists, 4 of 6 shooting. He earns his second player spotlight of the season. That's not too bad since he came in midway through this season. But once again, your player spotlight, Derek White, his second of the season, 15 points off the bench. Since you just joined in, Ian, before we talk about Derek White, what are your overall initial thoughts about this game? Because Seamus and I were talking about how, these are the 2 top teams this March. We expected this game to honestly come down to the wire. Instead, Celtics put up 72 points to 49 at halftime, and we were sitting pretty by then.
Remember when we were saying that the offense was the problem? It's hard to find flaws, as unbiased as I kind of want to be at times. It's hard to find flaws in this Celtics team right now. They played an amazing game. And what was the worst they got down by? Like maybe 20. Like that was like the worst they were up by in the second half. I mean, the Celtics just dominated on all fronts tonight. Jason Tatum had another great game. I mean, he should definitely be in MVP consideration. He's having an MVP season. Granted, I mean, earlier in the year we weren't saying that, but the second half, Jason Tatum has maybe been the best player in the NBA. Jaylen Brown is, I mean, it kind of feels like Jaylen Brown is being an underrated superstar at this point. Jaylen Brown is playing amazing. Peyton Pritchard, I don't think has missed in the last like week or so. Literally, anytime Peyton Pritchard shoots, I think it's just going to go in.
You know what, though?
Robert
Even his
misses look like they're going to go in.
Yeah, Robert Williams, he's not going to play tomorrow. Robert Williams, I heard you start to talk about it, but yeah, Robert Williams will undergo testing tomorrow night. He will not make the trip to Toronto. Hopefully that's okay. Of course, Robert Williams, you know, he's one of those players where even if he's out one game, that makes a total difference. Hopefully we get Al Horford back tomorrow as well. Udoka doesn't quite know, you know, what his availability is for tomorrow. So we might be looking at a Daniel Tice, Luke Cornett combination coming into tomorrow.
The 2020 Celtics special.
I know. But speaking of the 2020 Celtics special, how about seeing Nesmith and Pritchard making hustle plays? That's
a throwback, huh?
Yeah, that was like one of the only good parts of last season was seeing Pritchard and Nesmith play well, and they did tonight. Nesmith saw 15 minutes, scored 6 points, four rebounds, a steal, an assist. He also shot 2 of 4 from the field. Seamus, do you think Ime kind of has no choice to throw Nesmith? Like, look, he's coming off an injury, and 2, I haven't really gotten Nesmith going. We got to get him going before the postseason, because what if something happens? I got to throw Nesmith in there, and he's going to produce. Do you think Ime is going to work up his minutes towards the playoffs?
Well, I think we've gotten past the point of Ime actually feeling comfortable with playing Aaron Nesmith. Now, earlier in the season, we could have had a scenario where Aaron Nesmith gains more minutes and performs during that time, and then maybe he's a part of the rotation later on down the line. But right now, with 7 games remaining, I would expect in the next 7 games for a lot of these guys to start resting. We're already seeing it. Al Horford, he was out with personal reasons today. I don't know if they're actual personal reasons or he was just resting on the first night of a back-to-back. Same thing with Robert Williams. He's going to be out tomorrow night. That's the second game of the back-to-back. You know, that's more of a scheduled rest day. I wouldn't be surprised too if we didn't see Tatum and Brown a couple of games this upcoming week. They were probable coming into today. I don't know if they legitimately have any issues or it's more of that public perception of, hey, look, they were on the injury report ahead of time and now we're going to rest them and we're just going to say that we have this injury, sort of like the James Harden situation. So in this next, frame of time here before the playoffs, I do expect some of the younger guys to receive minutes that you typically, Aaron Nesmith being the main guy, typically receiving minutes that they don't get, because you do want to see something out of these players before you go into the playoffs that, hey, if something goes wrong or we do need to plug in a player here, or another team, say, over a 7-game series, another team figures out your niche, you want to go to somebody different at certain times, and you want to see who you have. And up to this point, the Celtics know who they have, but they want to make sure at this point to actually get those guys minutes heading into the playoffs. However, I don't expect any of these guys over the next week, say an Aaron Nesmith, to actually, propel themselves into the rotation, because right now the rotation is what it is. And as long as the health sustains itself over the next 7 games, which, fingers crossed, we've seen it go awry before, but if it stays the way it is the next 7 games, we're going to be seeing the same exact rotation night in and night out in the playoffs. And this little stretch of time is really just for those young guys to gain some extra minutes going into the future, whether it is the playoffs or the offseason into next season.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, granted, you don't want to see your best players out, but if you can give your players rest as much as you can, I think it's kind of important.
Chill, Rob.
Is Rob going to show in, or?
Nah, his Wi-Fi's down, but I don't know how to shut this. Can somebody please teach me how to shut the damn? How do you shut the?
The ringer off?
The ringer on your iMac. How do you do that? I don't know how to do it.
Turn down, I don't know, just turn down the volume. I don't know.
No, I can't hear you.
I was going to say, can't hear us
Yeah.
now. I've had that same problem before on my laptop. I'm like, oh, let me just turn down the volume for these notifications and whatnot. I'm like, oh, wait, I can't really hear anyone. But
I don't know. Anyway, but yeah. I mean, I hope Robert Williams is okay, because if he's out for an extended period of time, that's not going to be the greatest for the Celtics.
That's going to be disastrous.
Yeah, it's going to be disastrous. But yeah, I mean, as long as we can keep guys healthy, I don't really know what happens. If we just play, I mean, I'm okay with them playing Aaron Nesmith. Maybe he can find a groove late into the year, and maybe we can use him in the playoffs. Because, I mean, he could be pretty useful in the playoffs when push comes to shove. And the Celtics need some energy off the bench outside of Pritchard and Derek White and them. So I'm okay with it. Let's just hope and pray to any god we can to make sure this team is healthy going into the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, honestly, if that means not playing Robert Williams the rest of the year and just having him sit out and rest and practice, I don't know what you have to do, but whatever you have to do to avoid any major injury, just do what you can. Because when the Celtics are healthy, they're maybe the best team and one of the best teams in the NBA.
Yeah, wait, before we move on, wait one minute, Justin. Before we move on, since we're on the topic of health right here, this team, right now, health, that's going to be the number one argument in playing. We talk about this a lot. People have been talking about it all over social media, where do we want to play the Brooklyn Nets first? Do we want to jockey for a position at the top? The main argument for me to play the Brooklyn Nets first is health. If we are healthy, like, there's no guarantee that we're going to be healthy in the semifinals. There's no guarantee that we're going to be healthy in the conference finals. If we can get the Brooklyn Nets early and we're healthy right now and rolling right now, maybe that is the team we want to face first in the playoffs. But anyway, go ahead.
I just want to say about that, the Brooklyn series. Everybody's saying, oh, avoid first. First of all, when you've come this far, I mean, like we said earlier, we were like 3 months ago, we were even questioning if we were going to be a play-in team. We were sitting 12th in the Eastern Conference, like 3 or 4 games under 500. We were sitting here pissing and moaning. Now we finally get up to that top 5 spot in the Eastern Conference, top 3 spot, and now everybody's like, no, tank so we don't get first. No, you've come this far. The Celtics have won 26 of their last 29 games. You don't like you've come this far. Why avoid first place? Get to the top, get to the throne. You want to be the throne. You want to be the king of the Eastern Conference, no matter how many games it separates you between 1 and 10. And second of all, stop thinking about last year's Brooklyn series, because both rosters are completely different. Last year, they had James Harden. This year, they don't have James Harden, but they have Ben Simmons. But is Ben Simmons going to play? And even if he does, how big of an impact is he going to make? That is just one big what-if situation. Obviously, there's no denial in Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant being great, 2 of the most prolific scorers in the game right now, maybe of all time as well. And then you kind of look at how the Celtics were constructed during that series last year. No Robert Williams, no Jaylen Brown, no Kemba Walker. Not saying we would have won that series, but you're missing 3/5 of your starting lineup. You took them to 5 games. You live with that, right? And you won that play-in game. Now, flash forward ahead, we're beating these teams, these top teams in both conferences by an average of 20 points. And now you're saying don't go for first because you're worried about a potential Brooklyn Nets matchup. And I'm telling you guys right now, the Brooklyn Nets are getting healthy right now. They're playing some pretty damn good basketball. I doubt they stay in that 8th spot. And as long as Toronto say Brooklyn does stay in that 8th spot, guess what? New York lifted their vaccine mandate. Kyrie Irving can play home games. The only place he cannot play is Toronto. So if us Celtics fans are sitting here at 1 and the Nets are sitting down there at 8, all we need to do is hope and pray that the Toronto Raptors don't fall back into that 7th spot, because that play-in game is played in Toronto where Kyrie Irving can't play. So I say go for it. I say you're at the top of the Eastern Conference. You were on the bottom. Look, you were on the outside looking in. You were on the way outside looking in. Go for 1. Stay at 1. Continue to dominate the freaking league going into the playoffs. And Seamus, you said too, if we can get the Brooklyn Nets healthy, go for it. Do it. I'd rather get the Brooklyn Nets healthy than say we meet them in the conference finals or even the semifinals, and we're sitting here, maybe Rob Williams is out. God forbid Tatum and or Brown is out. And all of a sudden, the Celtics get swept or a gentleman swept again in the second round. Go for the first seed and take over the NBA. Continue to take over the NBA the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, yes, since we're on this topic, hang on. Sorry, Seamus. This is another thing with that. We have to play good teams in the playoffs. There's not a pushover team in the playoffs this year. Maybe Cleveland, maybe Chicago, but even then, they're good teams. You have to beat good teams if you want to win the championship this year. That's just what's going to happen. Whether you face them in the first round, second round, Eastern Conference Finals, or Finals, you have to play against good teams to win it all. So, who knows? Maybe we play Brooklyn. Maybe we beat Brooklyn. Maybe we face Milwaukee in the second round. Maybe we beat Milwaukee. I mean, it's just one of those things where we're going to have to play these teams eventually. And imagine the story if we beat Brooklyn, Milwaukee, and Philly all in a playoff series going into the finals to maybe face, let's just say, Phoenix. Can you imagine the story? The Celtics, who were 11th in the Eastern Conference on January 14th, turns it around and made the NBA Finals, beating 3 of the best teams in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, why wouldn't you want to be the first seed? Like, why wouldn't you? Just play the way you're playing. Keep winning the way you're winning. Granted, we have to make sure Robert Williams is healthy, but just keep winning. Like, I don't see the issue in that.
Yeah, and people mistake this about the Celtics nowadays, too, where, we're talking about all these matchups. Ooh, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, or Brooklyn. We want to avoid those teams. There is no avoiding these teams, as Ian said, but also we are the feared now. We are feared.
Yes, people fear the Celtics.
We're not fearful of other teams. We're not looking at Brooklyn. We're not looking at Philly. We're not looking at Milwaukee going, ooh, I don't know. Those are the fans talking. Because right now, all these other teams, they're scared of the Celtics. Look at what the Celtics are doing right now to every single opponent. Beat the Nuggets by 30. Beat the Jazz by 30. Beat the Memphis Grizzlies. Beat the Hawks. Beat the Nets. Beat the Timberwolves tonight. One of the hottest teams in the NBA right now outside of the Celtics. I would love to face the Phoenix Suns right now to see how we hold up against them. Unfortunately, we've already played them twice in the season. But right now, the Celtics, they are the feared team. Yeah. They are the number 1 team in the NBA right now, outside of Phoenix, of course, because Phoenix has been holding it down all season long. But in the Eastern Conference, I look at it now, there's no other team out there that I look at and go, yeah, they match up really well with the Celtics in a 7-game series. They're as deep as the Celtics. They can do this. They can play this way like the Celtics. The Celtics are so versatile across the board. And we mentioned earlier in the show, too, the offense was always the problem at the beginning of the year. They were a good defensive team. We remember back in November, there were good defensive performances throughout the season, but the offense would never follow suit. And yet now you look at the offense, it's one of the more efficient offenses in the league. Guys are cutting, guys are moving the ball. The ball movement has just been spectacular this entire year, this calendar year, ever since January. Before then, we were always talking, we want more cutting, we want more ball movement, we want more guys engaged into the offense, less isolation. And now that ball is moving around the perimeter. Not only is it moving, guys are finding open shots, and they're hitting those open shots at an insane rate. And the only thing that I truly worry about going into the playoffs is that we regress back to the mean in terms of shot making. But right now, the type of shots that we're generating, I don't think that's going to happen. We're taking and making really, really good shots on a consistent basis. And that combined with just the stifling defense, that is what's making the Celtics team so dominant right now. And other than health, there's nothing that can stop the Celtics team other than either, like I said, their health or themselves. And that's just what it is right now with the Celtics. We are the feared. We are the feared. The Celtics are the feared team this year.
Make that a shirt, Seamus. There you go. We are the fear.
They probably already have playoff merch made, but we are the feared right there. We are the feared. Big we are the feared. Logo
Are
right
the.
there. No,
Are
no,
the.
no cuss cries. No cuss cries. Because we were made fun of that. We had the CS rise, the cuss cries. I love the we're one superstar when we had Isaiah, even though he was our one superstar. It was like the whole team. But these playoff slogans, we are the feared. The Celtics are the feared right now.
Look, tomorrow, Toronto potential playoff matchup. I don't know how much stock we put into this game at this moment because we're potentially down Horford, Robert Williams. Who knows if Jason Tatum and or Jaylen Brown play because they've been dealing with their knee injuries. And hey, maybe their knees are hurting, but if their knees are hurting and they're still putting up a combined nearly 70 points and a blowout win, I'm totally okay with their knees hurting. But I don't know. This is still, I feel like even if no Robert Williams, no Horford, I still think it's a big game. I mean, this is a potential playoff matchup. Again, how much stock do you put into it without 2/5 of your starting lineup playing tomorrow potentially? Probably not too much, but I'd still like to see the Celtics go in there with some heart, with some passion, and try to pull out a win. This would also be big, too. This would be another tiebreaker one. I know Toronto's not catching the Celtics in the standings, but it's still nice to have those tiebreakers just in case. But
wait, is our next game at home after the Raptors game?
They play Miami. I know that. I
don't
remember
it is.
where.
It would be. It will be because it'll be Thursday, right? Miami.
So it's
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
It's at home.
Yeah, it's at
Wednesday?
home.
Yeah. Yep. At home.
I bet we have some resting tomorrow. But Toronto's a short flight, so it's not that big of a flight. We're not going across country or anything like that. And maybe you think, okay, we could just leave these guys at home. We'll be back Wednesday night against the Miami Heat. We want to be fresh for that matchup. And say Toronto, we do face Toronto in the first round. Maybe you don't want to give them the entire playbook tomorrow night. In terms of you can run your own stuff, but if you're not running it with Tatum and Brown and Robert Williams and Al Horford in the lineup, things are going to look very different come playoff time. And that might be a good way for Ime to, kind of scheme against their team or see what they're doing first while leaving the other guys at home for rest when second night of a back-to-back, have a game on Wednesday. We just had 3 days off. That was, pretty good stretch there. They came in tonight, Tatum and Brown, they put up numbers tonight, but they didn't really play up to their normal minutes. Usually they're playing around 40 minutes. They only played, 31 and 33 tonight. So, this might be a good resting opportunity tomorrow.
I'd love to see
maybe we'll see a end of the season last year special with Peyton Pritchard, Nesmith, Grant, Tyson, Cornette lineup rollout. Honestly, I wouldn't even be against it. I want the Celtics. I want them to be as healthy as possible going into the playoffs. If that means, maybe that means we end up being the 2 seed because we don't win as many games down the stretch. Maybe that happens. I just want them to be healthy. That's the biggest thing. So if you have to rest guys and run a lineup like that, that's fine. Just be healthy, please. That is the only thing that I'm worrying about.
And let's disclaimer this for a second. There's a difference between dodging a team and wanting to be healthy for the playoffs. What the Clippers did last year was dodging the Lakers in the first round. Everybody remember that, where they faced the Rockets the last game of the season? They sat everybody, take that game, and they're like, we're going to face the Mavericks in the first round. We're not with this whole, Lakers team right here. And they dodged the Lakers. If you want to be healthy before the playoffs, that's a whole different story. If you let the chips fall where they may while you're continuing to rest guys, that's a whole different story than dodging the Nets or dodging, whoever is going to be down. It's going to be the Brooklyn Nets, obviously, that everybody is talking about dodging. But there's a difference between those two things. Just a disclaimer.
I still don't think Brooklyn's going to stay in that 8th seed. I genuinely don't think they're going to stay in that 8th seed.
Well, they only need to win one game in the play-in to be the 7 seed. So, when people are talking about, oh, you want to dodge Brooklyn, the 1 or 2 seed, getting the 1 or 2 seed, say you get the 1 seed, you're not sitting there going, oh, okay, well, we dodged Brooklyn. They could lose that first playing game and then win the second one and be the 8 seed.
Right.
Or, vice versa. Right. They win the first one and they're the 7 seed and say you're sitting in that 2 spot. So if you're talking about dodging Brooklyn, people want the Celtics to fall all the way down to 3 or 4. And at that point, you could fall down to 4. You're facing Chicago in the first round. I like that matchup for the Celtics because Chicago, they have an inability to beat good teams, but you're still facing a pretty good team, which goes along with Ian's point of just you're going to have to face these teams anyway. So might as well just let the chips fall where they may and face who you face.
Honestly, it's going to be interesting to see because, maybe the Celtics end up being the 1 seed and Philly ends up being the 2 seed. What if Brooklyn wins that first game in Toronto or in Cleveland or whoever is the 7 seed? What if Brooklyn wins that game? Then they play Philly in the first round instead of Boston. And then Boston ends up playing either Atlanta, Charlotte, or Toronto. So, either way, we just kind of have to. It's really nothing we can control. It's not something we can even really look at and plan for. We just kind of have to let it happen at this point. So, honestly, just ride the wave at this point. So that's kind of what we've been doing this entire second half.
Something that I'd like to see happen would be a potential first round matchup of a Brooklyn Philly or a Milwaukee Brooklyn or Miami, Chicago. I love to see one of those matchups because that guarantees one of those really, really, really good teams to get out, right? Like if it's like Philly versus Cleveland or Philly versus Miami, Miami versus Cleveland, we have a genuine feeling that Philly or Miami would pull away in that series. But if we get a Philly and a Milwaukee or Brooklyn and a Miami, one of those teams are guaranteed to go home in the first round. That's one less team you're really, really going to have to worry about in the second round. But Celtics, I say push it. I say hell with it. Go, stay in first, win games. I mean, even if you're going to rest players, still go out there, make an attempt to win that ball game. I mean, I think these next 2 weeks are going to speak volumes as to what this team really is, as if the last 3 months haven't already. Because say the Celtics do rest players, or say they do cut back on the minutes a little bit, and they still pull away with wins. Like the Celtics have a really tough schedule to finish off the season. We see Toronto, we see Miami, we see, I think the last 3 games are on the road. It's Chicago and Milwaukee on a back-to-back, and then we finish the season against Memphis. That's a tough schedule regardless of who plays on either side. So this is going to speak volumes as to what this team is. And if we can have guys like Nesmith, Pritchard, and even Derek White get more and more comfortable into their roles on this team, that's going to be huge going into the postseason. Let's take a look at tonight's box score. The Boston Celtics defeat the Minnesota Timberwolves 134-112 on the Garden Parquet. This is Boston's 6th straight victory. Tatum and Brown combined for 65 points. Tatum led the way with 34, Brown with 31. Anthony Edwards, he caught fire in the second half. It just wasn't enough to lift Minnesota over that 20-point hump. He finished with 24 points. No Al Horford tonight due to personal reasons, but Celtics pick up the win nonetheless. D'Angelo Russell, he struggled tonight. 4 points, 1 of 6 from the field. They are now 6-4 in their last 10 games. Them being Minnesota, they're fighting to get to that 6th spot, that final playoff spot in that Western Conference, so they can avoid the play-in. We no longer have to worry about the play-in. We no longer have to worry about potentially being in the lottery because a few games ago, the Boston Celtics locked up, if you did not know, at least a spot in the play-in tournament, and pretty damn soon they're going to lock up a spot in that playoff spot, not even having to even think about the play-in tournament other than who they might play coming out of it. Guys, we're going to wrap up soon. Is there any final thoughts? I mean, Celtics 6 straight wins. This was a huge, absolutely huge win. Celtics now in first place with the Philly loss if you're just joining us. Ian, we'll start with you. What are your final thoughts? I mean, we know stay healthy.
Healthy. That's literally the only thing at this point, man. I mean, rest guys if you want. Be the first seed, be the second seed. It doesn't matter. Just be healthy, please. Right. If I can donate my knee to Robert Williams, I would, because, I mean, I don't know, man. I'm not even afraid of any team in the playoffs at this point. I'm afraid of the Celtics being healthy. That is my biggest fear with the Celtics going into the playoffs. That is I say just win. At this point, you've won. Good job. You've won your games. You are a legit team in the NBA now. Stay healthy so you can play in the playoffs. Please.
Yeah, and for me, we talked a lot about this Brooklyn series. I just want to make the point here of I want us to play Brooklyn in the first round personally, because last year was an absolute embarrassment in the first round. If anybody remembers, Kyrie stepped on the logo, called our city racist, or called Boston racist. And that whole series was just a grand level of embarrassment that I've never seen out of the Celtics, other than just most of the regular season last year, that I've ever seen before. And yes, we had that one game 3, and that was the one shining moment, but the rest of the games, they were not even close. This year, Kyrie, KD, this Nets team, they've been fooling around all season long. Kyrie with the vaccine mandate. They had Goran Dragic, who gives up on the Raptors. Ben Simmons still isn't playing yet. They have the whole James Harden drama. This team, yes, they're catching fire right now. Kyrie is going to be coming back for games. Kevin Durant, of course, is just Kevin Durant. There's really nothing else to say about him other than he's the greatest basketball player on the planet right now. But those guys, they're not as locked in, I can assure you, as the Celtics right now. They aren't. This whole team, you look at the Celtics as a whole, 1 through 9, or 1 through 8, 1 through 9, the Celtics have a better team right now. They do. They're on a roll right now. And they can beat this Brooklyn Nets team in a playoff series. And it would be wonderful if, number one, the Nets somehow went out in the playing game. That would just be hilarious after talking about them the whole season. But a better scenario, the Celtics, they come in as the number 1 seed. The Nets are the team coming in from the play-in this year, and we whoop their ass. And I cannot believe that is the scenario right now, because at some point I thought right now, I was thinking about this April stretch that's coming up right now, and I was thinking that those last couple of games, Grizzlies, Bucks, and Bulls, I was thinking, oh no, man, those are 3 games at the end. Are we going to make the play-in game? Because we were on that 10 spot the whole season. Are we going to actually make the play-in? Nope.
Right.
We're the number 1 seed. We are the number 1 seed, folks. It hasn't, this has been like a 2-year absence from the number 1 seed. We in Boston, or you guys in Boston, rather, with this culture, we're pretty used to winning in our lifetime, the last 20 years. We're pretty used to being at the top of the conference, top of the standings in every sport. And so right now, Celtics have this little lull of being completely mediocre the last 2 years. They went 71, or what they went 79 and 79 during a portion of, it was from February 7th, 2020 to this year, essentially. And now they're just the most dominant team in basketball. And I'm just going to be as cocky as I want to be about this until we lose in the playoffs, because right now, I mean, there's nothing more enjoyable than this. There really isn't. As a sports fan.
Mediocre is like the worst in sports. Like, you're not tanking, you don't suck so you can't get the draft pick, but you're not good enough to make that playoff run.
That's the worst position.
We talked about this in the beginning of the season, even towards the middle of the season, like being quote mid is probably, at least in my opinion, I'm sure you guys agree as well, that's the worst you can be in any sports league, because you're not qualifying for a solid draft pick for a young prospect. You're not qualifying for a deep playoff run, maybe even a finals run. You're just stuck in the middle, a potential first round exit, or sometimes even a hoax first round, and then we get absolutely obliterated in the second round. I don't think this team at all is at that point right now. And I know the game slows down in the playoffs. That could work to the Celtics' advantage defensively. Their offense right now, if they can keep clicking the way it's been clicking the last few games, then oh boy, the Celtics are the team to beat. And I'm sticking with that. This isn't me, this is no green teamer. This is legit. This is the Celtics don't win 26 of 29 games by an average of, I believe, something between 15 and 20 points. That's not a hoax. That's not a good span. I saw Stephen A. Smith and JJ Redick debating just a few days ago. This was right before the Utah game. And JJ Redick was giving the Celtics credit. He was, but he didn't think the Celtics have what it takes shooting wise to, get over the edge, which rightfully so. The Celtics don't have great shooters, so he's not terribly wrong.
But the numbers though.
But Stephen A. Smith was, he was going, he was like, Celtics are the team to beat, Celtics are the team to beat. And JJ Redick goes, Stephen A., you like to live in the moment. And I'm surprised Stephen A. didn't bring this up, but since when is 22-3 living in the moment. Since when is a 25-game span in any league in the moment? Maybe baseball, 162, 182 games, maybe. But like basketball, 25 games out of 80 games, 82 games. That's nearly a quarter of your season. That's not living in the moment. The Celtics are legit. The Celtics are here. They're not going anywhere but up. And it's crazy to say. Like we were at the bottom. We were 12th, 11th place. Like Seamus said, questioning if this April stretch was even going to mean anything for us. This is so tough. Are we even going to make the play-in, let alone make the playoffs? Are we going to make the freaking play-in? Now we're saying, okay, who from the play-in are we taking now? Who are we playing? Who are we playing from that play-in tournament? Huh? Trae Young.
Started
Trae
from
Young.
the bottom, now we're here.
You playing us? Trae Young, I damn well know we ain't playing the Knicks. Knicks ain't nowhere near the play-in tournament. Let's take one last look at the
bottom. Now we're here.
Let's take one last look at the box score before we move on. 134-112 Celtics get the 22-point victory on the parquet floor. Jason Tatum led the way with 34 points. Jaylen Brown 31, 24 from Edwards on the Minnesota Timberwolves. Celtics now improved to 47-28 on the regular season. That's 19 games over 500. They'll go for 20 games over 500 tomorrow night as they travel to Toronto to take on the Toronto Raptors. You don't want to miss it. I'll have you covered right here on BSML Celtics YouTube channel for live play-by-play. We will also have you covered for Celtics Postgame Live. If you don't know, we are turning into a Boston sports-wide media company. We do have an Instagram page for that. It is called Boston Sports Media Live. You can go follow us on Instagram. BSML Celtics will be making the switch towards playoff time officially. Don't worry, we'll still be Celtics Talk Weekly podcast. We also have a Red Sox account getting going pretty soon in the next couple of weeks. But for now, I'm Justin Lowe. That's Seamus Starlingo. That's Ian Angelo. We will see you guys tomorrow night. The Boston Celtics look to get yet another win. They go for their 7th straight win on the road and look to maintain that first seed, that beautiful, beautiful, sweet first seed in the Eastern Conference.
Oh,
we'll see you tomorrow night, everybody. Go Celtics.
Oh.